Mechanical waves is a significant departure from what you've done since September. And the way I want you to think about the difference between what we have been doing and what we're doing now is when you look at the content that we have studied, momentum, energy, velocity, acceleration, projectile motion, blah, blah, blah. We pretty much have one of two options for how we deal with the object. One is it behaves like a particle, so it has physical dimension and it has mass, and that mass moves. It can go left, right, it can go up, down, it can go circular motion, it can be a projectile, but in some way, shape, or form, we have mass that is moving. Okay, that's going to be defined as a particle. So everything we've done has been an object has moved. When you go to the phenomena of what a wave is, it's very different in that we don't have a particle moving anymore. It's a phenomenon where energy is transferred without mass transfer. That's going to seem kind of weird, like how are you moving energy without moving the mass? Well, the way I want you to think about this is the energy travels through the material. So a wave is a disturbance that is traveling through the stuff, not moving the stuff from point A to point B. So when they talk about a material, the word you're going to see that's often associated with is, they'll call it a medium. And again, it's just a Latin word for a substance. You're going to hear me talk about interchangeably material or medium, but it's whatever's traveling through, the energy is propagating through that. So just to kind of drive the point home, when you look at a particle, we're talking about, hey, we have a car of mass m, and it's heading this way, and it's going to have kinetic energy 1/2 mv squared. But physically, we're taking this mass and we're bringing it this way. If we look at a wave, make it simple. Look at a water wave. So if you kind of consider like the surface of the ocean, if you were to watch, say, a boat, it's a really bad boat, and it was anchored to the seafloor, you're going to see the waves are going to roll by. Say we have them going this way, left to right. So we have the wave velocity or wave motion is that way. But if you look at the way that the water physically acts in this vicinity, the boat moves up and down. And so what literally happens here is you have a disturbance that travels through the water, but the water, aside from some slight displacement, the particles of water here don't end up over here. So the energy of the disturbance passes through the material, say via collisions and things like that, and that disturbance is going to travel. But the material itself does not move on a large scale, as we looked at initially. So a mechanical wave is a wave that moves through a physical material. So what I want to look at is, now that we know that a wave it's a propagating disturbance, it's a transfer of energy from one point to the other, we don't look at what causes the energy. It's just, it could be you shaking your hand and making the slinky go back and forth. So you could be doing this with your hand, and that could be the energy you put into it, and the wave's going to travel this way. If we look at a couple of properties of waves, we looked at, say, a slinky, the snaky, which is a tighter slinky. There, as far as mechanical waves, we know they're going to travel through a material. So we could be looking at, air, believe it or not, as a medium, water, glass, stone, anything that has substance, it can be solid, liquid, or gas. Those are all types of medium. Now the key point that I'm going to start with, guys, is because of the way the wave behaves, key point, the medium dictates. It's the sole dictating factor, the speed of the wave. But say you have a wave traveling in air. Well, there's something called the speed of sound. It has a very set value, and it doesn't matter how loud the sound is, how high pitched or low pitched it is. Everything travels at the same speed in air. If you look at sound traveling through water, same thing, it's a set value. So the beauty of this, guys, is you can mess with any other part of the wave here, the height, the wavelength, the frequency. You're not going to change how fast it goes. There are two main types of waves as far as mechanical that we're going to look at. One is called transverse, and the other is called longitudinal. And this has to do with the way the particles in the material of the medium move compared to the way the wave moves. So if we look at, say, the slinky wave, what I want you to notice is if you look at, this is the slinky that someone's kind of put a pulse through and basically shook their hand back and forth. The motion of the wave, if you physically tried to follow the ups and the downs, the motion of the wave goes this way. But if you look at the video, I have a piece of green tape on the slinky, and I basically say, well, pay attention, watch what happens there. If you watch that tape, as this wave passes by, so then, the wave's over here, then it's over here. The particle essentially just is going to move up and down as the wave passes, quote, through it. So a transverse wave, if you think about the word, trans means across. Okay, that's literally what that word means. So the particle motion is across the wave motion. Or think of like the letter T, and okay, well, the wave's going this way, and the particle goes this way, that way. You like that? I just made that up. So a transverse does this. It's kind of, I call it a snaky wave. Now a longitudinal, we can use a slinky that way as well, but longitudinal, think of long direction. If we take that same slinky and say I do the push and the pull, so I give it a pulse. So say initially, this is my hand here, and I'm going to give this a push. What's going to happen is the rest of the spring, the rest of the material is at a particular spacing, say. And when I push on it, I'm compressing this piece of the material. Well, once the energy transfer has happened, what happens is the particles here push on these particles. But because these are pushing here, these stretch out. So what ends up happening is you have the propagation of this compression. And it's just going to keep traveling along. And what ends up happening is, I kind of call this a push-pull wave. But what happens is the wave motion is parallel to the particle motion. So the wave motion is parallel to the particle. And that's kind of the basics of what's called a transverse wave versus longitudinal. I will tell you, because of the way the waves behave, this might be a little bit more detailed, is that if you have this slinky and you make a transverse wave and a longitudinal wave, and you keep the same length of the slinky, same mass of the slinky, you're faster here. Because look at what's happening. This is moving up and down to make the wave go this way. This is more efficient. It's moving in the direction of motion. So by and large, this may not be massively faster, but a longitudinal wave in a material is typically a faster wave than a transverse wave. And usually can get both, say for an earthquake or something like that. So as far as the wave types, we know that the material dictates how fast they move. So if I have a slinky wave and I don't mess with the slinky, the speed of the slinky wave never changes. If I change the wave type to a longitudinal wave, that will change the speed of the wave because I've changed the arrangement. But by itself, that speed stays the same as well. So that takes you through some of the general behavior of a transverse versus longitudinal wave. So if we look at a transverse wave, and we look at a side view, so I kind of draw it like this. See a nice up and down water wave. If you're doing any kind of trig functions and stuff, guys, that's a sine curve. It's a periodic occurrence, periodic repeating disturbance. That's what a wave is going to be. It's going to be something that's causing a vibration or a pulse of energy that is consistent over time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So with this transverse wave, you notice there are sections that repeat, and there are differences in height. So when you look at trying to define a wave, there's going to be kind of a middle point where when the material's not moving, everything is kind of stationary. So it's going to do that. So I kind of call that my rest location. It's kind of like your zero ground energy for potential energy. But what I want you to look at is, as far as terms go, you guys have already seen these. So if you have a source that is producing waves, you're going to have a wave source. That wave source is going to produce a certain number of waves per second. Okay. Guess what? That's called the frequency. Sorry, you want to use this one, which is lowercase f. This is just number of oscillations or vibrations per time. So the unit's still the same, it's hertz. But notice what's going to happen here is this actually measures what's called the amplitude. It's the height of the wave. Typically you look at like the maximum position. So the amplitude I'm going to kind of draw with arrows here and say these are all amplitude values. So it's the height of the wave at a particular point. Usually they'll ask for the amplitude at the center, the maximum point, but they don't have to. But oftentimes this specific location is called the crest of the wave. Crest, crest, crest. And the low part is called the trough. T, T. So if you need to figure out this, the amplitude, this is the height of the wave. The amplitude is related to how much energy is being put into the wave, how much work is being done. And it turns out that the energy of the wave is proportional to the amplitude squared. And that's all I need you to know, is that if you have a certain amplitude, so say the amplitude is 2 meters high, and then we say you want to make a wave with a 4 meter tall amplitude. By how much does the energy change? Well, remember, this is proportional to amplitude squared, right? So if we want 4 times the amplitude, or we need 4 meter amplitude, have we doubled the amplitude? So the factor change is like we've done this. So what this is going to do is you're going to need 4 times the energy to get twice the amplitude. So remember kinetic energy, it's 1/2 mv squared. You double the velocity, you get 4 times the kinetic energy. So same thing here. If you double the amplitude, you're quadrupling the energy. So that's how you look at amplitude. The wave has a physical length or spacing here where it starts to repeat or recur. And typically they'll look at this from repeating points like the crest to the crest or the trough to the trough. So when you find the length, the distance, the x separation between repeating points, this is given the Greek letter lambda. It's a lowercase l. Okay. This stands for what they call the wavelength. And this is distance between, let's just say, wave crests, because you're always going to be able to identify them using that. So if I gave you the spacing here, like say this is 2, this is 4, this is 6, you could look at this and say, okay, this is 2, 4, 6. I have a 2 meter wavelength spacing here. And it's basically saying that this thing repeats over a length of 2 meters. On the sine curve, guys, that's going to be 2 pi. That's kind of the period of that system or that wavelength. So as far as the term goes, guys, frequency is lowercase f, amplitude is capital A, wavelength is going to be lambda, and energy is proportional to amplitude squared.